Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show, recording once a week, each week during the summer, no matter how dead things might be. And they've been pretty dead until, of course, we got to a little bit of Declan's favorite developmental camp last week. Declan loves the developmental camp, and we'll talk about that. It's Judd, it's Declan, and as she was referred to, I believe, Jessi Pierce, Bar Down Beauties, and also covers the Wild for NHL.com. And I think that you were called what? That girl on the show? Is that right, Jessi?
That girl on Judd's Hockey Show, which it wasn't meant offensively at all. I'm aware of that. I'm okay with that. But yes, that girl.
Well. Oh, whose dog is that?
It's mine. It's my Amazon Prime. I'm betting.
Prime
I
Day.
got a nice Bose speaker yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
you're just like Dawn, aren't you? There's stuff being dropped off constantly. Your poor husband has to go out and get it, but he's never ordering it. I know the feeling.
Just once, though. It was just one thing, and because the speaker that I have had forever, a very nice LTEC Lansing, which I could not encourage more, has finally died after years of wear and tear out on the water. So it was fair.
So we're going to get to an idea that Declan Goff dreamed up yesterday. It's very controversial. It's going to be fun, and it's going to cause, I think, a rift in this show, unlike any that's been set before, because I think we're going to disagree to a certain point. But before that, I want to thank our friends, Miller Marine and Power Lodge, who are sponsoring our show and giving you the keys to Cool Lake Breeze with clearance pricing on 2023 luxury pontoons, fishing boats, and more. Just look at that. If you are watching the show on YouTube right now and you're a hockey fan and you're enjoying summer, I'm going to tell you right now, the savings that you are going to get in getting into a Tri-Toon or a Bennington pontoon, they're going to be fantastic, and you're going to be able to be out on that water, which soon enough will freeze, but right now is gorgeous and warm in your pontoon. It's absolutely fantastic. Just go to millermarine.com, powerlodge.com, and snag yourself some what we like to call throttle therapy. Financing available on approved credit, freight, and prep are not included in packages. You are going to love what you get, though, when you're out there on that Tri-Toon or the Bennington. All right, Declan, I'm going to hand it to you to explain exactly what this is that we are about to do. I have completed the assignment. I don't think any of the three of us are going to have completed the assignment with the same results, though. So explain your thought process here.
Well, this is a little bit Jessi Pierce inspired because she loves line heathens. Well, she loves the heathens that ask her about the lines, and then that's how hashtag line heathens was born on Twitter. So I figured I would love to hear opening night lineups from all three of us. So that's the goal here. We need 4 lines. We need our 3 defensive players, and just give me a starting goaltender. We don't have to go into special teams. I know Judd would probably actually love to do that. I wouldn't be shocked if he already has 2 special team units drawn up.
I did, actually. Power plays.
We will spare our audience of that, but I need 4 lines. I need 3 defensive pairings, of course, and I need a starting goaltender as if the Wild are opening up their season tomorrow. Judd, do you want to kick us off? Jess, do you want to kick us off? Who wants to go first here?
I can do it. I'm tapped into Dean. You know that? Like I took a lot of my Dean infused, like I might not agree with it, but I know what he's going to go with, right? So I took some of that, but then I wanted to make it interesting. I wanted to see some players in there. I wanted to stir the pot a little, boys. So I've added some of that. So your top line, it's going to be Kirill Kaprizov. It's going to be Ryan Hartman. It's going to be Matt Zuccarello. That should be of no surprise to anyone. That's very Dean. All right. Then I've got Boldy. I know. Got Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson, Marcus Johansson, which in my opinion could be the top line. I really like that line. I know a lot of people want to see Joel Eriksson up maybe with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, but I'm liking Boldy, Johansson. It's got a good amount of size. It's got a good amount of grit and skill. So that's going to be my favorite line of the year. Okay. Foligno, Freddie Gaudreau, Brandon Duhaime down on your third line. Again, you're going to get what you get out of that. Duhaime and Foligno could do a 1-2 punch. Freddie Gaudreau, I'm sure Dean is not going to love having buried on that third line, but he's going to have to deal with it for this case. So that's my third line. For the fourth line, here's where people are going to hum and haw and not be thrilled. Got Pat Maroon on the left. Got Connor Dewar on your right. I've got Sammy Walker in your middle, which means Marco Rossi will not be on your opening lineup. I'm just had to be interesting, had to be different.
Wow.
Give Sammy Walker that opportunity. He looked great. He's got speed. He's got size. Not to say Marco Rossi doesn't have that, but I wanted to also be different. Maybe that comes to fruition. So those are the fours. Do you want me to just keep going with the rest of the pairings?
Yeah, but this is a colossal bust for Rossi then. If he can't make the opening night lineup as a fourth liner, wow. Okay.
You never know. So defensive pairings, pretty key and normal. Jake Middleton, Jared Spurgeon, your top pair. However, here's another area that I went a little off brand. Jonas Brodin and Kalen Addison. Kalen Addison is going to be given a larger opportunity. I want to see it. They're going to put him to the test. And then I've got Alex Goligoski and Brock Faber down on your bottom pair. The Gophers are going to set up a nice little duo, a little tandem, if you will. Faber's got the size. Goligoski does not. So maybe that will help down there. And I will go with, for our starting goaltender, Philip Gustafson.
Gus Bussin goal. Okay. Well, your defensive pairings are intriguing.
Right?
Do you think Dean is prepared, since you get inside Dean's head and knock around in there? Do you think that Dean is prepared to give Kalen that type of chance?
No, absolutely not. So you're just mixing it up. I'm just mixing it up. Okay. I mean, Kalen Addison, I think, is doing his part. I mean, he was around the team this last weekend in a coaching capacity. I think he gets the message sent to him, and I think he realizes that it's kind of a make or break deal. So I can see him coming into training camp well aware of the eyes that are on him, well aware of what he needs to do to seize that opportunity to really make an impact. And then also I look at the fact of, yes, Brock Faber did fantastic during the playoffs. And again, this isn't a slight to Brock Faber at all, but he's still a young, quote unquote, young guy. So technically, if we're going seniority rules for Dean's mantra, Brock gets a seat below Kalen Addison. But I could see them trying those combinations. I am curious. I think the only pairing, that doesn't get mixed around this year would be Middleton and Spurgeon. And honestly, I could see John Merrill possibly making a push. Dean really adores him as well to bust into that opening night lineup. But I want Kalen Addison to get his shot on that second pair with Brodin and see what might happen.
Fair enough. I'm tired of adoring players, by the way, in this town. John Merrill, you're a great guy. I like you. But you know what? See ya. You're going to be eating popcorn by Judd if you're here in the press box. And Jessi. Declan, you're next.
All right, I'll go next
I'll
here.
go last. Yep.
Okay. Top line. I will go Kirill Kaprizov on the left, Matt Zuccarello on the right, Joel Eriksson Ek in the middle. I'm going to move Joel Eriksson up here to that top line. Okay. At least they're going to try it again. I know they briefly tried it a little bit last year, but I think they're going to try it again. They need a legitimate center up there. And although Ek is more of a solid, more two-way player, not maybe a number one center, he is your best center on the roster. I need my best center with my best playmaker in Kirill Kaprizov, so I'm pairing them together.
Is Dean prepared to allow this to last for more than a week?
No.
Yeah. Like
no. They could have a great... Yeah. No.
Drives me crazy.
It's the right idea, Dex. It's the right idea.
It is the right idea, damn it.
Love it.
Make it happen.
Darn it. Okay.
All right. Second line for me. Matt Boldy on the left, Mojo on the right, Marco Rossi in the middle. They are going to give him the keys. They are going to give him the second line duties. Again, I'm speaking this into existence. I know it's very unlikely. I know the coaching staff has a short leash with them, and they want to maybe even ease him in. Maybe not a short leash, but they want to give him a long leash to ease him into this role inevitably. But you know what? You have no depth with top line centers here. Give Rossi and Boldy some time here. Boldy and Mojo were really good together last year, so I want to keep those two together. I will put Marco Rossi in my second line spot. That's where I'm going there.
Yeah. Which again will last like a period before Dean gets impatient and promotes Freddie.
Yes, and I mean, frankly, Rossi probably won't play more than 7 minutes, so you can't have a second line center that's playing 7 minutes a night.
Can't do that as well.
All right.
Third line, a little bit of a maybe potential surprise here. I actually have Pat Maroon as your opening night third line left wing. I like Pat Maroon up here a little bit more. I like him more than, and look, you could be interchangeable here. I'm not going to fight you too much on it, but I think they move Pat Maroon up a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Pat Maroon, Frederick Gaudreau, who I have in the middle, and Brandon Duhaime on the right, is actually your opening face-off to start the season.
Yeah.
I could actually see that 100%. Dean likes to even do that to start the games off. Wouldn't shock me at all. It is the most boring and vanilla opening night combination you could probably make in the entire NHL, but it would not shock me if Pat Maroon, Frederick Gaudreau, and Brandon Duhaime were there on the opening draw to drop the puck on the 23-24 season. Judd is ready, gonna blow a gasket. I'm not sure, and the season hasn't started. Evening Judd from the X. He's upset at the opening line draw.
You can. I don't doubt you're right.
I don't either, and I get it, putting Maroon ahead of Foligno just based on side by side. Maroon has more skill, otherwise they're fairly similar players in a lot of respects. So I don't disagree. I don't disagree that that's probably the opening night faceoff. I'm already forgetting who they play opening night.
Florida.
Oh yeah. That's
they open
definitely
here?
That is definitely they do open here. That is definitely your opening night.
Panthers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Fourth line for me, and this is very interchangeable. For right now, I have Sammy Walker, Ryan Hartman, Connor Dewar. I think there's probably even someone not on the roster right now or someone that impresses in the training camp portion that earns a spot. Right now, I even thought about just doing TBD on one of these roster spots because I'm sure they are going to be a little interchangeable. But yes, I have Ryan Hartman buried on the fourth line. That's where Ryan Hartman should be playing. Ryan Hartman should be on the fourth line. He's fine in that role. I've loved him in that role. That 30-goal season was a pop-up random situation that was not sustainable, as we clearly saw last season. So I have Walker, Hartman, and Dewar to round out my forward lines.
Interesting. Okay.
It makes sense. Like, on logistically speaking, if you take numbers and plug them in, that's what a computer would spit out. You're like an AI kind of a little bit, really.
Yes, exactly what I'm doing here.
Yes.
Defensive pairings. I have Jake Middleton and Jared Spurgeon up top. I think that is most likely cemented. You can basically guarantee that will be the case pending a major injury. But Jake Middleton, Jared Spurgeon up top. I have Brodin with Faber on the second pairing. I have Broads with Faber. I think that one makes a little bit more sense. I like Brock Faber. Everyone claims he's one of the most NHL-ready defenseman prospects they've seen, and probably since Jonas Brodin, to be honest. I think those two are pretty sound, and honestly, the Wild have had a history of having very sound top four defensemen. Brock Faber enters, Matt Dumba exits, so Brodin and Faber there. And right now for the third pairing, I said I was going to do this on the fourth line, but I have TBD on the left and Kalen Addison on the right. I'm with Judd. I don't think it's John Merrill. I think it's someone we do not know yet.
So you don't think it's Goligoski then either?
And I don't think it's the Goose. I do not think so. I don't think they'll give him the benefit of the doubt either. And so Kalen Addison does draw in here, but is a TBD. It is someone we are either not thinking of, or it's someone that's not on the roster, and maybe not on the active roster, but shows up in training camp, maybe on a professional tryout and earns a spot. It's TBD for me on that third pairing with Kalen Addison.
Interesting. It's going to have to be, so you're probably talking about a prospect that makes a team from camp, is my guess.
Prospect
because of how salary cap strapped they are, or a cheap guy they get in like a John Merrill trade.
Yeah, like, I forget who made the roster like on a tryout 3 or 4 years ago, but that also can happen. Like they bring in a guy, a slappy, and then all of a sudden he's fine to hold the fort down for 15 games before then he's eventually inevitably waived. But I feel like that might be the case too on that last defenseman. And then I have Gustafsson starting.
I don't
Damon
see this
Hunt, playing out.
I think for defenseman prospects in Iowa that have been on the radar, I think Damon Hunt is probably your most likely or most realistic to probably get that look. Again, a lot of guys at development camp, I know we'll discuss that later. There weren't a whole lot, but there wasn't also a lot of opportunity for the defensemen to stand out while they were all literally skating circles for hours.
That's the other thing too is, and you know what? I would like to agree that there could be a wild card on the defensive pairings, but again, to go back to Dean, I don't see it. He's going to be too tempted to play Goose or Merrill. It's probably going to hurt him not to play both of them, but my God. All right. So here's the intriguing thing. I thought there'd be more disagreement, especially between me and Dex here, but there's not. Oh. I'm with Declan. I'm putting Eriksson up. I'm putting Eriksson Ek. If I'm Billy, I'm telling Dean, you're going to put Eriksson Ek at center with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and you're going to leave him there. Now, I do think there's a chance. I would be curious if this is the year that Zuccarello and Kaprizov get split up at times, which they did a couple of years ago, but they didn't do last year. But they're like, we're in high school act, gets a little bit old at times on the ice. Like they get so cute. It's like, oh, we're skating circles around one, Zuccarello has fallen off. He's not good enough to justify that. And two, I think Kaprizov gets a little bit complacent with Mats because he's, there's something to be said for making guys uncomfortable, not in a negative way, but Kaprizov should never get comfortable because he's so good when he's playing his game. And I feel like Zuccarello and Kaprizov get comfortable at times, but I'm convinced opening night, they're going to be on the same line, and I'm putting Ek there. Eriksson Ek is playing there, and I'm going to make this one work. They fall into this thing of, well, but he's such a grinder. I mean, the grief line is long gone. It's never coming back. So it's time now to take the guy who right now is your best two-way center by far and play him on that top line. The only thing that's different is I'm going to classify my second and third lines different than Dex.
Okay.
I'm going to classify, because it's Dean, my second line as Gaudreau between Foligno and Hartman. I'm calling that my second line to make Dean, because he's going to feel good about his veterans. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to call it my third line, but it's really my second line. Rossi centering Boldy and Jojo. Rossi deserves this chance. And we got to find out. It's go time. It is go. Mm-hmm. This is no longer about, well, I mean, he's the 9th overall pick. I'll continue to bang this drum until they give him a chance. He has nothing to prove in the American Hockey League. He is supposed to be a key part of your future, or he's a bust completely, which I'm not going to say at this point. So Rossi, Boldy, and Johansson. And then my fourth line is just a fighting, grinding line of Patty Maroon on the left, Duhaime on the right, Dewar at center. So I don't have Walker making the opening night roster, although I like the thought, because I did like what he brought. Brings a ton of speed, you guys. Brings a ton of speed. So, but I guess the one thing I think is it's time to accept and just to make and to have Eriksson Ek be your top line center. Your thoughts?
It's time. Like I guess.
I mean, yeah.
It's time for Rossi to get the shot, and also I just don't think you can put Ryan Hartman up there on opening night. I understand why Dean will do it, and it drives me bonkers, but Ek is your best center, and you got to give your best center the best playmakers. I would eventually love to split up, Kirill and Zuccarello. You know, it would be inevitable, I think. I think sometimes they just get way too cute with one another. But I think Ek on the top line or on a line with Kirill Kaprizov, to me, just it makes too much sense. You at least have to try it out a little more.
Well, and really try it, Jessi.
I agree. And again, this isn't to knock Rossi or anything like that. I just, for whatever reason, they don't want to give him those opportunities. And you're right, this year is the make or break year. I was kind last year to say it didn't make as big of a difference. This year you do, but I still see them not doing it for whatever reason. Like there's just something that continues to hold them back on him. And I'm not sure what. Again, I haven't seen enough live games of him down in Iowa. From a stats point, it looks like he did phenomenal, right? And I think he's got a good personality. He's got a good work ethic that they like. But there's something that the Wild brass are just so hesitant on. It's not the patience. It's not letting him develop. It's not that. There's something that I'm missing that I just don't get it, where I can see they continue to kind of delay him a little bit for their own thought process.
Well, Bill's been quoted as saying that he doesn't play, that he believes, when I think he was quoted as saying this when they sent Marco to Iowa early last season, that he doesn't think he plays with an edge enough and a bleep you mentality. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that has to be gained here, especially on like a team like this too. Because I mean, this is not a veteran, this is not this team is going to the cup like this. And this kid is, if he's going to be a part of your future, it's going to be incredibly important. So at some point in time, I know Bill and Dean come from an era where I come from as well. And look, that hockey was fun and I enjoyed it. But at some point, if you're going to have, according to The Athletic, the number one farm system in the entire league, which I think the Wild was ranked last year, you're going to have to start to bring those guys up and not be like, well, until you're meaner. I mean, there's a fighting chance Marco Rossi's never going to be mean enough for Bill Guerin or Dean. Mm-hmm. Does it mean he can't play in the league? I don't think so. I don't know. Let's find out. I'm just tired of him going to Iowa, and then you see the stats, Jessi, and it's like, oh, he's doing really well. Well, it doesn't mean crap right now. Mm-hmm. So that's my opinion. All right, my defensive pairings. Yes, and I have no problem with this opening night. Spurgeon on the right, Middleton on the left. It's a good, solid pairing. The Jake Middleton trade in retrospect was really good. Like he has brought a ton. He's not a star, but he is way more solid than I expected. Second pairing, I'm going Brodeen on the left, Faber, the Dumba replacement on the right. Thank God, it's about time. I think that these two together could be brilliant. I think these two together will be seen as your top pairing by those who aren't insistent on saying, well, it's got to be Spurgeon. He's on the top pairing, right? I think Brodeen and Faber, they're effortless players.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do things. And in the regular season, they are, Brodeen in the regular season is genius. Playoffs, there have been some question marks. So that's my second. My third pairing, I'm going to make it Merrill, Addison, Goligoski in the press box. But I'm with you guys. I'm not sold on Kalen. I don't. This team doesn't seem to like him. He's a smaller guy. To call a spade, when you acquire what is largely, and Toronto paid him, I don't know what the heck Toronto was doing. When you acquire John Klingberg, who clearly has some deficiencies that go, they're huge deficiencies, and you replace Addison, who actually was a fairly productive power play player on a power play that absolutely stunk, and Addison was like done. That's a grudge I don't know that he can get past. Mm-hmm. So I'm still not going to be shocked actually if he gets traded in training camp.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm with you guys. I think both of you. I'm going Gus Bus in goal because I think he's your top guy now. And in the year, I think it's Wallstead probably.
Yeah, pending something going wrong with these negotiations and Billy trades them, which we talked about last week. I think they end up getting this deal done. But it makes sense why Gus is your opening night guy. And I mean, I guess maybe they gave it to Fleury because of seniority, but I also don't think that's the case. I think Flower kind of knows what this is at this point, where he's the backup to Gus. That's rightfully so. That's fine. He's fine to ride this out into the sunset. Maybe at the deadline, he goes back to Pittsburgh for a curtain call, but I think he kind of now knows that I'm about to hang it up here.
Are we skirting past this? Who did you say was your backup though, Judd?
Oh, Fleury right now.
Oh, I thought you said maybe Wallstead.
No. I said Wallstead in a year, I think is your starter probably.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
I think there's a very good chance that the 24-25 season opening night, Wallstead gets the start. But yeah, Fleury's my backup. But, to be very clear too, though, I think, and Fleury is, as I've said since the day they traded for him, hockey royalty. Like, he's a Hall of Famer. He's fantastic. Great quote. Seems to be a great guy. All of that being said, I think ideally now he is largely in the Jonathan Quick role that Quick fell into with the Golden Knights. Now, I'm not saying in the regular season now, Quick is, I think, the backup with the Rangers. He's going to play. But, this is not a timeshare. This is not a split. I think that Fleury is there largely for support, knowledge, and as sort of a secondary goaltending coach. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not looking for Dean to dust off the flower consistently now. I think he brings a lot, and I think that he's an important part of the team. But there are definitely some things I'll personally be watching to see if Dean sort of goes towards Dean's favorites or old school guys. Because I really hope that we're getting past that.
Well, I think for Gus, the biggest thing is how he enters training camp. Is he well conditioned? Is he stronger? I mean, those were kind of the knocks that he had last year, reason that he didn't get the looks immediately because he was gassed by starting a game. It just kind of took a lot out of him. So I think that's going to be huge. Now, having met Gus a number of times, seeing him throughout the season, I think he will come into camp just fine and pick up where he left off in even better shape. But that would be the one reason I think that you'd see Fleury maybe instead of Gus is if they are not impressed with his offseason workouts.
All right, so those are our lines, defensive pairings, and starting goaltenders opening night for the Wild as we get closer to training camp. Jessi, you were at developmental camp doing your a job for the league website in covering this team. Clean out your notebook as far as interesting things that you saw at that developmental camp. I think it was 3 days at Tria Rink.
As much as you can find development camp interesting, no offense to any of the players, no offense to anybody.
So don't feel bad.
It's just so hard. It's a lot of the same, and it's good. I love that they do so many team bonding things. I think they played volleyball the first night down in Minnetonka. They went to Top Golf Saturday night, and then they went and played whirly ball. A lot of the guys were hassling the Russians and the other guys from over in Europe who don't know golf and how bad they were. So there's always that ribbing. It's really cool to see. Brock Faber, Sammy Walker were at development camp, which I think speaks volumes about their leadership and who they are as people. Certainly didn't need to be there. As we've mentioned, they are rostered in some capacity for the season, Brock Faber especially, but they came back, took the option to come back for development camp and kind of play those leadership roles, did a great job. There were 6 Minnesotans at development camp, 3 from Edina. That's all we'll say about any of that.
Take eaters. They're taking over the Wild roster.
They're everywhere. No, but speaking of one of the Minnesotans there, Charlie Stramel, had to talk to him, right? He was first round pick this year. A lot of negativity surrounding him. And, rightfully so, if you look at the struggle that he had in Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, a bad team last year, especially in the Big Ten, but just in general, not a great year. Now, this year, they've got a new coaching staff. Mike Hastings is going to come in and do his thing. They've got players that have now moved up into the room. So I think Charlie Stramel will really find him. The first thing I noticed about him, dude is big. Like you knew he was. You wanted a big, deep center. His shoulders were huge and he's lanky, but he moves really well for his size. He really reminds me of Riley Tufte, you guys. Riley Tufte was another first round pick who really struggled at the college level and has still kind of struggled to find his footing. I think he's found a decent spot with Dallas this upcoming year. He was a two-way player last year, but he's a lot like Tufte, just in the size, in the way he moves, and with the opportunity that's in front of him. Again, both first round picks, both trying to adjust their game a little bit. But Charlie Stramel, when I asked him about the negativity, because I felt bad. He's a hometown kid getting drafted by his hometown team, and nobody seemed happy. He said he took it with stride. He's like, there are plenty of things that I need to work on, but just like any positivity, yada, yada, kind of gave the lip service. But I believed him when he said it too. I think, he understood why people were maybe questioning that. So that was really exciting for him. The other big exciting point for me, Danila Yurov. I hope I'm pronouncing that right because I am terrible at pronunciation.
It sounded good. It sounded very convincing.
Danila Yurov.
That should be his name.
We're going to go with it. At least on JHS and Bardomedes, we're going to go with that. Right. He is under contract with the KHL next year. So incredibly rare to see a player like that under contract come over to North America for development camp because God forbid he gets hurt here, can't play next season. And usually the KHL just, no, we're not doing that. So that speaks well because he is a highly touted prospect. He is going to be phenomenal. He and Kirill Kaprizov have texted. Danila does not speak any English, but his agent was there to help kind of translate some through. Seems like a really good kid. Very exciting. The plan right now is for him to be here, not this next season, but the season after, which is going to be great because Kaprizov is going to be happy about that. Not to mention Marit Kuznetsov is also probably going to make the jump to North America that year, as will Liam Ogren from Sweden. So you get those 3 big bodies, and I can see Yurov. He currently plays winger. I could see him bumping over into center if they need him to. So he's not quite as big as Ogren or Kuznetsov, but he still has a little bit of size. And he thinks of himself as a Landeskog, if you will. So those are some big things. Again, very exciting. As exciting as development camp can be. Always nice to be back at the rink, though, and checking in with peeps.
I know tensions are high, but are we tracking towards Putin having a suite at the Xcel Energy Center at this point? I mean, my God.
Yeah, it might happen. It might. Wait, it makes Kirill happy. What we can do.
Whatever we got to do.
Kirill happy. I mean, especially if you do look at it, if they come over in 2 years, you're heading into that last year of that 14.7 million, right? And so
that's
maybe
3 then?
Yes. Yeah.
Kaprizov and the other, or 4
It'd be
total?
Kaprizov, Kuznetsov, and Yurov.
Okay.
And Kuznetsov, also a big, huge, highly touted prospect, was not at development camp this year. But another Russian that is going to do big things, has done fantastic things on the international level. So very exciting to see. Yeah.
Great stuff, Jessi. You see the value there of going to developmental camp. Declan's least.
Thank you for doing that work, Jessi, because I would
No problem.
All right, great stuff. We'll be back, of course, next week for another episode of Judd's Hockey Show. Jessi, thanks much. Declan, tell the people what they need to hear.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment. This is Judd's Hockey Show, also a part of the Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd podcast feed. And if you have anything you want answered on a future episode of JHS by Judd, Jessi, or myself, hit us up in the YouTube comment section. Drop a note on the Score North app in the feedback tab. We'll gladly get there and pass, shoot, score.